It's sad that it really ended up the way it did because I don't know. There's just a lot of stress. There's a lot of sadness. Well, I think you went crazy or something. I don't know the details of the negotiations of what you dealt with the two boys.
Expected the kids to, to not take entitlement, but to take, start working for it.
But Matt, you've got to understand. There's a lot that
Matt, you got to understand. You got to say that 100 times.
All right. Tuesday, July 19th, video number 3. Super excited to be here today. We're going to get back to the roll-offs. I know last week I did a little bit different content, and trust me, I'm going to keep updating on the story that I brought to you last week about Vaughn McCrae and Andrea McCrae, the influencers. But today I'm going to stick to the realities TV stuff and the gossip and the tea in that world. As soon as I have an update that comes from like the court, I'll let you guys know what's happening in that situation. So today we're going to talk about the roll-offs because this whole season has been about Matt and the farm and the fight with his son Zach and the dispute between them and Zach and Tori moving to Washington and the relationship sort of eroding between the two of them. And a lot of people, the fans, were pretty annoyed with the storyline. They felt like everything was faked. They're faking drama. They're faking the drama. They're faking the storylines. They're faking everything. And we finally see Amy stand up for the kids.
I'm still sad that one of the kids don't have it.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think you went crazy or something. I don't know the details of the negotiations of what you dealt with the two boys.
Before the season started, like right before the season started, Matt let everyone know, he let the public know that he was selling the farm. The farm is still actually on the market for $4 million. And he is selling like, I don't even know, it's like under 15 acres, along with the home and some of the buildings that are associated with Roloff farms. And he's keeping 93 acres. He made this announcement and he basically made it seem like the boys couldn't come to an agreement, and he offered discounts and he went out of his way to be accommodating to his kids, but ultimately it didn't work out, and that he has 4 children and he didn't know how he was going to divide it all. And it just became this whole big mess. And then Zach Roloff basically made a comment on that same post, calling his dad out, telling him that he was being disingenuous, he was manipulating the situation, and that that's not what happened. And that, his dad had promoted this legacy that he was going to hand down the farm, and then it's really just become about profiting off the family, profiting off the kids, profiting off your own family. Right?
Like, for the price of this, the kids can't afford that.
No, there's a family price. They all know it.
And not actually the legacy. So in an exclusive clip that came out yesterday, because the season finale is tonight, Matt and Amy have like this confrontation. And Matt and Amy in their confrontation are upset about, Amy's upset with Matt about his decision to sell the farm, but she's also upset with him with how he treated the kids and how he created the hornet's nest that is what happened in the situation. So she says to him, like, you created a hornet's nest. Like, you let the kids believe that this is going to be a legacy. This is what you implanted in their minds for years. You told them that this was the family legacy. This idea did not exist without you promoting that idea. And she even tells him, like, I sold this to you off of a 2-year appraisal. I took less than I needed because I wasn't expecting you to turn around and sell it for more to the kids to try to make a profit off of it.
But the thing is, man, you got this, a 2-year-old appraisal is what I sold it for. I never expected it to be as much as this ad.
Nobody expected
offering it to the kids. I thought
so she's basically sad that Matt, she sold it off of a 2-year appraisal, and she sold it for under $1 million to Matt. And she didn't believe that when she sold it to him that he would turn around and like increase the price so significantly that he would price the kids out of the property fully admitting that the price that he is giving the kids, which is a family discount, which I believe is like $2 million, that's the family discount. So
I thought you would be,
No, I'm.
you know, a little more reasonable.
Well, the kids are getting. They just what they don't like is the fact that it shrunk.
Discount. So just put this here for you guys, folks. Your dad grows up, tells you all your life, this is a legacy. You can have this. It's going to be our legacy. And then when you go to your dad, who literally just bought off his mom for less than $1 million, he tells you a year later, you need to pay me $2 million, inflating the price by twice. Right? So she's saying to him, like, Matt, I can't believe you did this. Like, it's really sad that you would do this. You didn't have to inflate the price. You didn't have to make the money. And he's all like, well, Amy, everyone knew that there was a price to this. And she's like upset. And I mean, honestly, I can't blame her.
But, you know, I got to think about all 4 kids. There's 4 kids involved. And so what's fair, you know, at the end when the big piece is in an estate, what's the fairest thing you could possibly do?
I've actually been kind of annoyed this season because I feel like she's been way too like this, but she's off the property now. So I guess she probably feels like she can't have much of a say, but finally like sticking up for her kids. And listen, I know like there's a certain amount of entitlement that comes with the Roloff kids. They grew up in reality television. They have like a silver spoon in their mouth. I don't deny that. But she's not lying and she's not wrong when she says that this whole idea would not have been manifesting in their kids' mind if it wasn't for Matt. So Matt basically says that he ended up shrinking down the property size so there would be a larger pool for him to shrink and like divide between the other kids. And so that doesn't even make sense because there was like 109 acres. And if he was really going to do that, he would have like split them into like 25-acre parcels or 27-acre parcels each, but instead he offered Zach like 13 acres or 14 acres and he wanted $2 million for that. Can you imagine how much money he would end up making if he were to do that to each one of his kids and how much money he would be making to give them their legacy?
You know what the good news is? There's 93 acres in this family. I mean...
No, there's 93 acres for Matt Roloff.
Okay, well, there you go.
It's not part of the family anymore.
Legacy? He's actually not giving them a legacy if he's profiting off the legacy. This is what I don't understand. Like, and I think this is what Amy's pointing out. And then he has the audacity to basically say that even if he were going to sell it, he doesn't have the faith that his boys would even do what he needed to do, and he would have to take care of the land. Like, not cutting his kids any slack or capability to do the job. So how do the boys ever grow into the responsibility if the dad doesn't let them? And why does he assume that he would have to pick everything up just because they bought it?
Growing up, you created this image in them, and unfortunately, that's a lot harder to let go because it's inbred. It's part of, you know, who they are.
I feel like everything in the world of Matt is the world of Matt. Okay, then he says, well, we still have 93 acres left in the family. And Amy's like, no, we don't. You have 93 acres. And that's true. It's all about Matt because Matt... he wants to divide the land the way that he wants to divide the land. And even now, if you were to divide it by 93 acres divided by 4, you're still at over 20 acres each, was less acreage than he wanted to sell it to Zach. It doesn't make sense. Matt's logic is like mental gymnastics in my brain.
I expected the kids to, you know, to not take entitlement, but to take, you know, start working for it.
But Matt, you got...
So when she finally, like, they start, like, confronting him, and she does say, like, Matt, you're the ones that created this. And then he, instead of taking ownership for the fact that he created this idea, he calls his kids entitled and says that the kids are acting entitled to the property.
But Matt, you got to understand, there's a lot that is...
But Matt, you got to understand. You got to say that 100 times.
And then she tells him to take accountability, and he's like, I am taking accountability. And I'm like, dude, are you really taking accountability, Matt? Like, Matt's a businessman. And Matt, I'm sure, is looking at this and seeing this and viewing this as an opportunity. And because of that, he is unfortunately not seeing his children as human beings. He's not seeing whether or not they can do it. I mean, listen, y'all don't have to like Jeremy and Audrey, but Jeremy is at least a hard worker, and he wanted the farm, and he wanted to take care of the farm, and he put in time and effort. Matt acts like they haven't worked for it. This is the part that irritates me the most. Matt wouldn't have half of this property if it weren't for the show. And what made the show good? His kids. And did the kids get paid while they were young? No.
It wasn't like I didn't try to sell to the kids at a basically half off family discount, but I'm glad that even with all that, they made other decisions because I don't think the fit was quite right.
So Matt has all of this property, all of this wealth, and his kids are then going to have to pay him when they weren't paid as kids and they didn't get anything out of it, and now he's still going to have them make him more money?
Right. You know, if the kids had gotten it, I would be stuck maintaining it almost, you know, maybe even harder than I do now.
I always try to like give Matt the benefit of the doubt. When I think of this family though, it doesn't make sense to me why Matt wouldn't cut slack and pay the kids. I mean, Zach and Tori are getting paid now, but when they were on the show way back in the day, no. Jacob said when they were kids, they were not paid. So that means all the wealth that they made in the heyday of the show, Matt pocketed and bought the farm with. That was money that the kids made for the family. People watch the show to watch the kids. Today they watch the show to watch these phony storylines. I mean, I don't know if this is a real storyline, but I'm just glad to see Amy actually sticking up for her kids. You know what I'm saying?
You don't admit to anything.
I do.
You don't. Part of this, I would say the majority of this hornet's net, unfortunately, you need to accept lays on your shoulders.
Okay, well.
So Matt and Amy eventually have this blowout. She walks off. It's over.
Okay, well, I'm taking responsibility, so.
But you're taking responsibility of not creating a legacy. All right.
So this
Where's the exercise
conversation's
bike?
out of context.
Where's the exercise bike?
Over there.
All right, got it.
Matt will do anything for money and do anything for a storyline. And unfortunately, right now, it seems like the only kid that is actually on good terms with him is his son, Jacob, and his daughter-in-law, Isabel. Because Tori and Zach have a strained relationship with their dad, as well as Jeremy and Audrey. And I don't really know where Molly sits into this. Molly, I don't believe, lives in the state, and she has a job outside of this world. I don't think Molly wants to even be on the farm. But, you know, if Matt's talking about inheritance and legacy, he would be dividing this up equally, right? And he wouldn't be looking for profit. But that's what Matt views this as. And again, I can't reiterate this enough. It reminds me a lot of Jim Bob Duggar. Like how Jim Bob became super, super wealthy from his show. He has all of this property and then he throws his kids like a used house that's like 50 years old for like $2 and is like, here, you can live here, and then makes them dependent on him. I feel like Matt in some ways is a little bit worse because he's not even giving his kids the house. They're not giving the kids anything. It's just like, oh, you want some of the property that I told you was my legacy? Nope, you actually have to pay me $2 million for it. When he bought it from Amy a year before for $975,000. I can see why mom would be mad, and I agree with Amy. He's the one that planted the idea in them, in the kids. The kids wouldn't have this idea if it weren't for Matt. So Matt's not going to take accountability for this. And I understand if you think that the kids are in the wrong. Listen, the kids aren't perfect. The kids might have some entitlement. They might be a little bit snooty. They might feel like their things should be owed to them. But where does that come from? Who made them feel like it was owed to them? Did that create them in their mind? Or was it after years and years and years of their dad telling them that this is what I'm going to give you? I feel like Matt is the product of that, and he doesn't want to take responsibility, and then he just wants to deflect and say they wouldn't have taken care of it, they didn't have the skills, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. Matt just wants like all of the control and the power and the money. That's my opinion. What are your thoughts? And did you like this season? Did you not like this season? Are you kind of done with the series? Tell me in the comments below. Bye guys.